What up? What up? What up? It's Kenny. Um, Wanted to holler at y'all real quick. My lady is currently getting her nails done, so I'm not gonna be out here long. She's probably already halfway through. I just really been out here chilling. But something just came across my heart. Just want to speak on it briefly. Um, Speak on it briefly, and perhaps it'll help somebody. Okay. Now, what I want to talk about is what it means to have like spiritual confidence. Okay. And what is spiritual confidence? Um, Ultimately, it's basically just having confidence in what it is that you know. Okay. And what it is that you know. A lot of times we get caught up in the information. We get caught up in comparing ourselves to individuals that we learn from, and we are intimidated by the vastness of their knowledge, which is greatly earned. It's earned because they put in the work in order to obtain the information that they have, so they can convey it to you and give it to you, so you can take it and, so to speak, kind of play it forward to others. So for me, that's the path that I'm on right now. You know, I've learned so much from the individuals who have dedicated their lives to this work of self-knowledge, self-understanding, and so forth. Those like the Brother Panics, the Bobby Hemmitts, the Phil Valentines, the Wayne Chandlers, the C. Freeman L's, Dr. Jewel Procrum, Shahrazad Ali. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. I'm always checking out something from one of those individuals. A lot of times I like to go back and look at the information again with a new mind, because one thing you'll learn is that once you begin to expand, you will start to see things with a newer mind, and you will have to go back and listen to things again to gain a brand new perspective. Perhaps what you thought it was initially may not be what it truly is. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when you're a child, you think intimacy is one thing. If you so happen to look at it on TV, or you see it in a magazine or in a book, whatever, you have this idea as to what intimacy is. But until you actually mature enough to the point to where it actually happens, or you may, a lot of times we start fucking before we are even mature. But once you expose yourself to what intimacy is, it changes your whole perspective. It changes your whole idea of shit and what you thought it was. Sometimes it's very hard to get to that point of exposure because you become so used to this identity of yourself. You know, I used to be one of those guys that prided himself on not being a smoker, not being a drinker, not being a cursor, really clean cut. Just this identity that I built for myself so I can remain safe. You know, didn't want to really ruffle any feathers. Didn't really want to create any enemies. You understand? Just want to be nice to everybody. Want to be nice, want to fit in. You dig? Don't want to hurt no feelings. So, one of the things once you start to study spirituality and things of the occult, one of the things you will begin to look at is your idea of yourself up to that point, and all the things that you've done up to that point that made you become the person that you are at that present moment in time. One of the things you will start to realize very quickly that this perception of yourself is totally and completely false, because this perception that was built is based on a foundation of mind control of society and how you was raised, your parents, things of that nature. So one of the things you begin to start to probe is like, what is the real you? What is the real you? You know, how do you get to that point of discovering what the real you is? You understand what I'm saying? And that takes a lot of confidence. That takes a lot of it takes a lot of confidence. It takes a lot of courage, I would say, to get to that point to where you want to know more about yourself, reality in general, let's just say. Okay? To expose yourself to more. So you can ultimately begin to reflect that true light that's within. The true light is the real essence of what you are, that is outside of what humans say you are. Okay? What your parents said you are, your cousins, all these motherfuckers that kind of put you in a box, that kind of keep you stagnated. You wake up every day, you're frustrated, you don't really know why. You know, you're frustrated with the progression of things that you invest your time in, and they're not necessarily getting to a point to where you will like. All of these things, you know what I'm saying? All of these things are designed to put your mind in this box so you won't see that yourself is more, and you don't know that it's a big world out there. It's a big world out there. It's more to life than what it is than what you have been exposed to this point in time in your life. It's time to do something different. You know, start telling yourself, I think it's time to do something more than what I've been doing all this time. You know, like, this ain't it. Now, again, I'm speaking to those who are interested in knowing more. Ultimately, if you are content with where you are mentally and spiritually, then this conversation isn't for you. I'm only talking to those who are, let's just say, that's a bit more forward thinking, that actually is not satisfied or content with what they've experienced so far. Okay. Now, that's somewhat of a double-edged sword, because even when one of the things you begin to do once you begin to study is that even in the realm, in the field of spirituality, especially in the beginning, it seems as though you're never satisfied in the beginning. You know, like that quest for knowledge is infinite. But although that path, it will be filled with a bunch of forks in the road, is because it is going to be completely and totally contrary to what you've been exposed to your whole life. Okay? So it takes courage. It takes gumption. It takes a lot of how can I say, hunger, desire, being dissatisfied. So one of the things I began to do was I began to recognize that I was this rigid person. So this rigidness, I began to realize once I began to not necessarily compare my life to others, but I just began to reflect on my own life. And I began to look into things that I used to be against with an open mind to see what the deal really is. I was one of those guys that never did shit. Never smoked, never drank. I hardly ever cursed at all. When I began to reflect on my life And I realized that there was a lot of moments in my life where I wasn't necessarily tempted to do those things. Of course you are to some degree, because you're gonna be exposed to shit when you outside. But I began to question why I was so against those things. Like, why do I care about people who cuss all the time? And what is so bad about smoking? Or what is so bad about drinking, or any particular vice that is relatively harmless? I began to question why I looked at things like that. Like, yo, why? You know what I mean? My best friend, I have a best friend, he's 13 years older than me. And one of the reasons why, I met him when I was like 18, 19. And one of the reasons why, and there's many reasons why we tight, but one of the reasons why me and my homeboy is tight is because he was the opposite of me in a lot of ways. There was something in him spiritually that I knew that I could learn, based on his overwhelming freedom of expression. You know, like he cusses waking up in the morning. He's probably cussing right now. You understand what I'm saying? There was a sense of freedom that I looked at once I exposed myself to that on a daily basis. I began to admire the freedom of him expressing himself without giving a fuck about how people thought about it. He really was just really about his own shit in his own way. He does what he want to do. And there was something that was in me that admired that admired an individual who has the gumption to do whatever the fuck they want to do. You know, I began to study like pimps and hoes. Now, what I need you to do is get past the morality. Get past the morality and begin to look at this shit more on a spiritual level. How I began to see myself, I remember I watched the documentary called American Pimps. Now, if you haven't seen that, I think the shit is quite fascinating. The documentary was made by the Hughes brothers. I believe the year was 1999. Okay? In it chronicles an assortment of pimps and some hoes, and they basically give you an insight as to what the lifestyle is about. And of course, again, I'm not here propagating that. But one of the things that I found intriguing and interesting is that they are unapologetic about who the fuck they are. They have no qualms about it. They have no qualms about it. They are completely confident in who and what they are. And they're cool with that. They accept that. It's specifically in the present and when they are doing it. Of course, time moves on. And perhaps to a degree, mentally and spiritually, they are still those individuals, although they are well past their primes. You know, when they're in their 60s, 50s, 70s, whatever the fuck, and they're not pimping and hoeing no more. The remnants of that identity still, reigns deep. You know what I'm saying? Within them. I began to admire the confidence that they had in that. I began to admire confidence in anyone that was unapologetic about who and what they was. Like, I began to become impressed with people who would just say, yeah, I'm the best. Yeah, I think I can do that better than anybody. I wasn't so much as caught up in the arrogance as I was caught up in the confidence that they had in themselves. Brother Panda talks about Seinfeld, and I'm not going to break the whole story down, but long story short, y'all remember when Kramer lost it at the Laugh Factory when he was saying niggas, and the overwhelming how I want to say it, the overwhelming result of that breakdown of him fucking losing it is it put the show Seinfeld in danger of losing its legacy. Seinfeld understood the power of symbology. He understood the power of legacy. He understood that the show was iconic. He understood not only the show was iconic, but every character on the show is an icon. You understand what I'm saying? And he more or less, he knew that in order to maintain what they built, he had to more or less get things back in order. So he had Kramer going to television show. I can't remember if it was Jay Leno, if it was Jimmy Kimmel, one of those late night shows, and he goes on there, and he essentially he apologizes. You understand what I'm saying? He apologizes, and that was step one to it. And then the second part was Larry David, the creator of the show, had a show called Curb Your Enthusiasm, and where he brings back some of the cast. Y'all know the story. He brings back some of the cast, and basically Larry wanted to do things a certain way, but Jerry quickly reminded him, like, nah, we can't do shit like that because we are already established as an icon. And then he pointed to all the characters of the show. He was like, Kramer, icon. George, icon. Elaine, icon. You know what I'm saying? Jerry Seinfeld, an icon. And I remember Panic being so impressed by the confidence that they had in themselves. You know, and he more or less wished that black folk would have the same confidence in themselves. You know, and I had to find that confidence within me, you know, because when I grew up in the 90s, I grew up absolutely idolizing Michael Jordan. I idolized that motherfucker. You hear me? Like, he was my favorite person in the world. I looked up to him. He was my hero. He was a superhero to me, man. I knew everything about him. All the statistics. I could tell you everything. Even to this day, the shit is so deep ingrained in me. I know all of his statistics. I know all of that shit. You understand? So, like, if I wanted to be in a debate with a nigga, I will be equipped with all the bullshit. You dig? So, as a child, and being so heavily impacted by Michael Jordan, I idolized him to a degree where I wanted to be him. To the point to where I began to check my measurements. Like, yo, you know what I'm saying? I began to dream, like, man, maybe one day I'll be 6'6". And perhaps I'll have the opportunity to make it to the NBA to be like Mike. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that was like my idea. I dreamed of being Michael Jordan. I wanted to be Michael Jordan. So understand how I am setting myself up for failure based on this limited idea that I'm putting on myself. You understand what I'm saying? I limited myself to this idea. You know, this idea of being Michael Jordan. So once I hit a certain age, and I realized I wasn't going to be 6'6", I realized I wasn't going to be no bigger than what I am. You know, I've always been a skinny nigga. You understand? So, like, I realized I wasn't going to be 6'6", 215 pounds. I realized I wasn't going to be able to fly like Mike, jump out the gym, and wear, you know, and have my own sneaker line, all that shit. Once you realize those things, or if you idolize anyone that's in the entertainment world, you'll start to once you start to fall short of that shit, it can sometimes fuck with your confidence. My confidence was fucked up. You dig? My confidence was fucked up because, or yeah, I would say that was a part of it. Because there are many things that fuck up your confidence. When you hear somebody tell you that you can't do nothing, or when a person tells you that you're not good enough, or if you trying to be a part of a particular group or a circle and you unable to get in because they don't feel like you fit into their circle. All this shit, you know, fucks up your confidence. And as a byproduct of your confidence being fucked up, it'll be hard for you to see yourself as anything more. Because you begin to identify yourself only with things that you deem successful. Being a successful actress, being an athlete, being a successful singer, all of that, you know. And I don't want to just limit it to the world of entertainment, but a lot of us are stuck in that vein because a lot of niggas out there trying to be rappers, and all of that. And they don't realize that they're not good because it's too hard to accept that, because they don't know that that they are much more. It's hard to accept that you're not good at something that you've dreamed of doing your whole life. You dig what I'm saying? The beautiful thing about spirituality and the occult is that it neutralizes all of that bullshit. My lady get ready to come out, so I'm gonna have to cut this short. So I'll make a part 2, maybe. And if anyone happens to have any questions, of course I'm willing to answer any questions if I can. Because at this moment in time in my life, one of the things I'm most interested in is exposing myself to new ideas of new ideas and new ways of thinking. Always. You know, so if I can catch a video of something, if I can hear something, if I can read something, it is always edifying to me spiritually and in so many different ways to expose myself for the opportunity to grow. You know, I'm always looking for a way to grow spiritually. I'm always looking for ways to expose myself in order to do that. You understand what I'm saying? So ultimately, you know, hey baby.
Hey boo.
You good?
Mm-hmm.
What time is it?
It's 5:55.
Oh, okay. That took just a little bit over an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You happy with the results?
Mm-hmm. I love it. This natural, that way I can rock it in uniform. Can't nobody say shit to my ass.
Oh, it's neutral?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, looks relatively neutral. All right, guys. So yeah, I want to leave y'all with that. I want to leave y'all with knowing that you are more than a rapper or an actor. Now, if you excel in this shit, do what you wanted. I mean, I don't, it's whatever. But what I'm trying to get you to understand is that your identity is not solely connected to what it is that you do. Because what it is that you do, remember, these are all man-made things. And all man-made things are very limiting. You know, you want to begin to see yourself as limitless. You understand what I'm saying? You want to see yourself as limitless. Right now, you just see yourself as a regular person because you under this religious idea of something that is outside of you, something that rules over you and lords over you. And it's hard for you to see yourself as something that is greater. It's hard to see yourself something that's greater when you've been taught that you've been slaves your whole life. When you've been taught that you are just a regular schmeggler person. But the analogy that I always like to use is that what if your mother sat you down one day and said that, hey, baby, listen, back in 80, whatever, before I met your father, I was talking to this other guy. Okay. Now, this other guy I was dealing with, it is what it is. I end up getting pregnant by this guy. Your father is not your father. Okay. So JoJo Johnson, the guy that you grew up with, thinking that was your father, he really ain't your father. Your real father, we'll just say your real father is Michael Jordan or Barack Obama. So imagine how that information, if you found out that your father was this major celebrity that everybody idolizes, like God, how that would automatically change your perspective on life, period. Because you will begin to attach yourself to something that is iconic. The thing that you need to recognize is that you yourself is iconic. That you are God. That you are God. And once you begin to see yourself as God, you begin to I'll save that. I'm gonna say that. You ready to go, baby?
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I'm
None of your business. I'm good.
No, maybe we don't want to sit in front of this parking lot. We want to get the hell out of here.
Okay.
All right, peoples. I'm gonna holler at y'all in a little bit, and then I will expound upon what that means. Okay. what it means to begin to recognize yourself as God and what that does for your life. Just how if you grew up poor and your mama told you JoJo Johnson was your father, then all of a sudden Barack Obama or Michael Jordan's your father, and them being rich and all that shit, you will automatically begin to believe that you're rich. You will automatically begin to feel special. Understand what I'm saying? Once you expose yourself and you realize that you are God, you understand what I'm saying? You'll begin to look at yourself different. Things will be different for you. Shit that you thought that was important don't even fucking matter. Shit is little to is low. You will begin to start to look at things on a much more grander scale. Okay? All right, people. Holla at y'all in a little bit. I'll be back. One.